Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Spurs Chat podcast, or should I say Premier League predictions. The Premier League is back. It will be starting on Friday evening as Liverpool host Bournemouth. 5 games will take place on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and then 1 on Monday evening. Now, my name is Chris Cowlin. I'll be hosting this short episode today. I'm alongside Gareth McGuiness, of course, channel regular, and we will be predicting these 10 games, the 10 results. We'll be giving our thoughts ahead of the Premier League season. And I'll also be asking Gareth who he thinks will be relegated and who he thinks will finish in the top 4 and win the Premier League in May 2026. Now, Gareth, how are you?
All good, Chris. Got back from Italy yesterday, back to work today. Tell you what, the weather's not too bad in Ireland, dry. But I've swapped blue skies for grey skies, so I think the rain will be on the way probably at some stage this weekend.
I've literally just got in the door from Italy, and I've been away for the last 3 weeks: Hong Kong, South Korea, Germany, and Italy. I tell you what, next week's going to hit me when I go back to the day job on Monday. But it's been a fantastic 3 weeks. Of course, we'll be talking Tottenham shortly, Gareth. But how excited are you for the Premier League season to be back? Because you know, we seem to have that little bit of a break in June, and then pre-season starts in July, and then the games come thick and fast, and then all of a sudden the Premier League campaign is here.
Yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing, Chris, because obviously we're both Tottenham Hotspur fans, but we're both big Premier League football fans as well. You know, it's great to be able to sit down tonight and watch Liverpool take on Bournemouth, and then before our game tomorrow at 3 o'clock, you can watch Aston Villa against Newcastle. And you know, even if you're not happy with that, you've got 5:30 Wolves Man City, and then Sunday, of course, there's a massive game at 4:30 between Man Utd and Arsenal, and then of course it continues right through to Monday night, Leeds and Everton. Yep. So much football they watch over the next few days, and it's great to have it back because, especially I know we had a Club World Cup that obviously divided opinion, but we had no World Cup or Euros, no internationals. It was an odd year, so it has been feeling like a long time coming. But we're here now. And of course, whilst the excitement is there for the Premier League to start, I was actually talking to some of my colleagues today who support all our clubs, and everybody seems to be still looking to do business before the deadline. So whilst there is excitement, I think a lot of fans are nervous because they feel that their team isn't prepared for the start.
Well, one team certainly is the champions, Liverpool. They have certainly prepared well for this second season under Arne Slot. Can they do it again? I think many people are expecting them to do it again. Before we talk about this game, Gareth, I should say to all of the viewers and listeners, please do get involved in this episode. Let us know your score predictions as we go along. I'll read some of them out as well. Now, Gareth, like you mentioned, Friday evening, the Premier League season for the 25-26 campaign does kick off at Anfield. Now, Liverpool have won 11 of their last 12 Premier League games against Bournemouth, with the exception being a 1-0 defeat back in March 2023. And Bournemouth have taken just 1 point from 24 available away against Liverpool in the Premier League, winning 0, drawing 1, losing 7, losing their last 6 visits to Anfield by an aggregate score of 23-2. I think that this has got a Liverpool win written all over it. They have strengthened in the transfer window as well. I feel like Arne Slot is going to deliver trophies yet again at Anfield in his second season. Quite simply, I'm going to go for a 2-0 professional win, professional performance by Liverpool. They're going to get off to a winning campaign. That's my opinion. What's yours?
Well, them stats they don't make great reading for Bournemouth and Bournemouth fans, but the way Bournemouth will look at it, Chris, is a bit of a free swing. You know, there's a lot of pressure on Liverpool, probably more pressure on this year than there was last year because, as you said, a lot of people think they're the favourites. They won the league. And, of course, being the champions also carries a bit of pressure. They've signed a lot of good players and a lot of very, players that our clubs would love to be having. But when you sign so many players, I mean, two new fullbacks coming in, the front line's going to look very different, really, only Salah being part of it, because you'd expect Ekitike and Florian Wirtz to go in there. So there may be a little bit of gelling to do. So you might see a blockbuster Liverpool kind of 4 or 5-0 tonight. I do expect them to win, but I'm erring towards the side that you're on, that it'd be more professional than, really exciting. But the one thing that I've seen with Liverpool in pre-season is to be conceding a lot of goals. So Bournemouth might feel if they can get their first goal, maybe they've got a chance. But I think Liverpool will be too strong, so I'm going to go for a 3-1 Liverpool 1.
Okay. Yeah, we've both gone for a Liverpool win. Steve Dyer, interestingly, watching on YouTube right now, he said that Bournemouth will win this game. So he's gone against us. But, the Premier League, you never ever know what's going to happen. But I just feel like Liverpool are going to be too strong, like you, Gareth. Now, 5 games will take place on Saturday. Aston Villa against Newcastle, Brighton against Fulham, Sunderland will take on West Ham, Tottenham against Burnley, and Wolves will take on Manchester City. Let's go now to the Aston Villa v Newcastle game. How do you see this one going? Because these two sides, they've both done fairly well in the Premier League last year. What do you make of the Alexander Isak situation at Newcastle? It don't look like he's going to ever put that Newcastle shirt on again.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some really interesting cases over my time of watching football, and this one kind of reminds me of the Peter Odemwingie transfer, where he basically says he was never going to play for West Brom again, and even on deadline day, when a move looked like it had fallen through, famously, he drove to QPR's training ground and wasn't let on. I wonder, are we going to see a similar situation if Isak is still a Newcastle player by contract on deadline day? What will he do to try and force this move through? I kind of feel that Chrissy's been badly advised. I mean, Liverpool have put on a really big offer, but in this kind of transfer market, you would say it's probably not worth what Isak is worth to Newcastle. I do think if Liverpool want them, they're going to have to get the 130, 140, possibly even 150 million to get him, because we're seeing kind of players go for 60 and 70 million, which you would maybe have put as 30 or 40 million players a few years ago. So they'll have a value on Isak, and I've no doubt if they get near that value, they'll let him go, because Isak has made a lot of trouble for them. But Newcastle are having a tough time in the transfer market, Chris, of getting players on. And Villa as well, they've had a bit of a difficult summer. So it's two teams that have done fairly quite well, like you says, but both clubs have had difficult summers. We're hearing that Villa, even though they're selling Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle, can't spend that money because of PSR rules. They can play with European competition. So both clubs will welcome an opening day one. I think Villa are in probably better condition due to the fact that there isn't too many stories around their players leaving. They're just struggling to buy, where Newcastle are obviously trying to keep Isak, but also struggling they're being knocked back for a lot of players that they've went for. Ekatiki, Sesko, just to name a couple. But my feeling is Villa at home, I think they might have enough to get past Newcastle. So I'll go for a 2-1 Villa 1.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gareth, interestingly, Newcastle have lost 5 of their last 6 Premier League away games against Aston Villa, with the exception being a 3-1 victory in January 24. And Hotspur State of Mind here on YouTube says that he thinks it'll be a 2-2 draw. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Aston Villa win. He's done a good job there, though, Emery, isn't he?
Yeah, and just as you says there, a stat that jumped into my head when I was reading about, obviously, the Premier League preview this weekend. I think Aston Villa are unbeaten across their last 24 home games in all competitions. So,
there you are.
They are a difficult side they beat there. So I would be surprised if they didn't at least get a draw. But as it says, I'll go for a Villa 2-1-1.
Right, Gareth, next up is Brighton against Fulham, 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Brighton beat Fulham 2-1 in March, ending a 9-game winless run against the Cottagers in the Premier League, drawing 4 and losing 5. And Fulham have won just 1 of their last 7 away league games against Brighton, drawing 3 and losing 3, beating them 1-0 back in Feb 2023. How do you see that both of these teams are going to do this season?
I think both teams are very attacking teams. Both have very attacking managers, so I would expect goals in this game. But in terms of their seasons, I mean, I don't think they'll be in any danger of being dragged into any type of relegation battle. Both clubs, Brighton have obviously had a European run. I think they just missed out last year despite beating us on the final day of the season due to results elsewhere. So I think Brighton will be targeting our top 10 finish, and possibly if there is teams that are, the likes of Man United, Spurs, Villa, Newcastle, if they have off seasons, they'll be ready to pounce and maybe think of sneaking into one of those European spots for the Europa League or the Conference League. I mean, the one thing that I don't get with some of these teams is you see they're in no real danger of relegation. When it comes to the FA Cup in January, how serious will they take it? Will they go full strength, or will they rotate and go out early? Because I think Brighton and Fulham should look at what Crystal Palace did last year and think there's no reason why we can't go far in the FA Cup. Because a lot of the European teams in the second half of the season prioritise the Champions League and the Europa League, because of the the reward of being in the Champions League the following season. So Palace saw an opportunity last year and they got a massive reward for it. I wonder will Brighton or Fulham be that type of team this year? I do think they should target the cup competitions because mid-table finish, I think they'll be guaranteed. But mid-table, no worries about looking down, but probably just short in terms of squad depth. They push for top 6, top 7.
Gareth, I'm going to go 2-2. What's your score prediction?
Yeah, I am going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? I feel like this game's got a draw written all over it. Next up, newly promoted Sunderland against West Ham United. It's very fair to say that West Ham struggled last season, as did Spurs. I'll get that in quick before any West Ham fans are watching and are about to complain. But they had a poor season, same as Spurs in the Premier League last year. Graham Potter. It's fair to say that West Ham have gone through a lot of managers in recent times, particularly in the Premier League. Sunderland, can they stay up? How do you see this one going?
Well, I mean, I think Sunderland have been very, very busy in the transfer market. They've brought on some real, the best thing I would say is, that Danny Rose statement about Googling players. I haven't had to Google any of the Southampton signings because I know all their names. So I think Sunderland. That can only be a positive for Sunderland. Yeah, I do think it'll be a positive for Sunderland because, we see a lot of clubs that come up and they maybe have a lot of the same players that got them promoted or maybe sign players from our championship teams and they really struggle. We've seen that with Ipswich and Luton over the last few seasons. But I think Sunderland have given themselves a real opportunity. I know he's a bit of an Arsenal, I wouldn't say legend, but the Arsenal fans loved him, Xhaka. I think that type of experience will be really, really crucial for Sunderland. They've got a player on there that knows the Premier League. And I think Sunderland have the best opportunity out of the promoted teams to stay up. Like he says with West Ham, they've had a difficult season. They've really struggled to kick on after that Europa Conference League one. They obviously lost Declan Rice. Michael Antonio had that tragic accident. 2 massive players that they haven't really replaced. The Fulkirk signing I thought last summer would work, but he's had a lot of injury problems. So there's no doubt there's a lot of problems. And losing Kudos, I think, is probably a big blow because he has that one player alongside Gerard Bowen where he can possibly win a game on his own. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Gerard Bowen to kind of drag West Ham through. And I think Graham Potter will be under a lot of pressure because he came in last season, didn't really have an impact. If it doesn't start well, he could be one of the first managers that goes out the door because we know with West Ham, like we do with our own club, the owners and the chairman's not afraid to change up if they don't think it's going well. So difficult one to call. I'll let you go first this time, Chris. On this one, I'm struggling.
Well, I'm going to give you a very interesting stat here. As a Premier League side, Sunderland haven't won their opening match in any of their last 7 seasons, drawing 4 and losing 3. Most recently losing 2-1 to Pep Guardiola's Man City back in 2016-17 season. I tell you what, I'm going to stick my neck out here. I think that stat is going to change. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Sunderland win because back in the Premier League, the Stadium of Light, that place is absolutely buzzing. I tell you what, their fans are brilliant. Very, very noisy, very, very passionate fans. And I'm going to go for a 1-0 Sunderland win.
Well, I think that old Sunderland stats, like you says, was a different generation of Sunderland. They were really, really struggling. There's a lot of issues with the ownership. Of course, if anyone hasn't watched it, I would recommend watching the Sunderland Till I Die documentary because it is really good. It gives you the insight that Chris says about the fans, how passionate they are. They get 46,000 on Boxing Day one time in League One. So that shows you the size of a club they are. They are a Premier League club and it's great to have them back. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the Londoners will feel because it's an hour trip up to that part of the country that's very, very long. And it's always cold up there. But it's great to have them back from the club point of view. And I'm going to agree with you, Chris. I'm going to say they're going to take advantage of being back in the Premier League, a full house, a West Ham side that we're not really sure about, and I'm going to go for a 2-1, Sunderland 1. 2-1,
okay. Good stuff. Right, next up, and I know we're not going to talk very long about this, Tottenham v Burnley. 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Tottenham have won 8 of their 9 Premier League home games against Burnley, drawing 1, only failing to take all 3 points in a 1-1 draw back in August 2017 under Mauricio Pochettino. Now, of course, Gareth, I'm saying that this has got a Spurs win written all over it. I think that every Spurs fan was very happy when we got the fixture list out, knowing that we were at home, first of all, and playing against a newly promoted side. Scott Parker, of course, will be coming back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I've been very impressed Over the last couple of weeks, of course, I've seen all of the pre-season games. I've seen a couple of training sessions as well. And I've been very, very impressed with Thomas Frank. Of course, you and I were in the stadium the other night in Italy when we very, very nearly beat PSG. They come back and drew 2-2. And then, of course, we lost on penalties. But Thomas Frank, tactically, everything he is doing at the moment, and certainly in the training sessions, his communication with the players, also the communication from all of the staff, all of the coaches with the players, I feel like is exceptional, and it is a big, big change. And we see, and we have seen in pre-season that he is very, very adaptable. I think we've spoken about this before anyway, but it has been really underlined in these pre-season matches. Of course, it's been a mixture of results and performances during pre-season, but going into the Premier League campaign, how are you feeling about Thomas Frank? I know you'll probably talk about transfers. Savinho looks to be, well, hopefully will get done. The Eze deal is a little bit away from getting done, but hopefully that one will get done. Although, some of us have been waiting 6 years for this deal to get done for Eze. But Thomas Frank, I feel like he needs, more in this squad to take us forward. But from what you've seen so far in pre-season, Gareth, have you been impressed?
Well, Chris, I mean, we were in the stadium on Wednesday night. It was our first competitive game. A lot of people will say they don't read into pre-season too much, but it is good for fans like you who go to all the games. You get a first row seat on, what we're going to do, the ideas, the tactical setup, the relationship with the players, how the players are feeling about the new manager. And it's all fairly positive from what I've seen. Of course, the Bayern Munich one was the one that was a real concern, but like I says after the game, on the podcast last week, I did feel that they were holding back a little bit because of how big the PSG game was. And look, the performance on Wednesday night really couldn't have been much better. I think we really, really surprised a lot of people, including our own fans, of how competitive we were, how organised we were, how tactical we were. And look, there was a lot of concern in the stadium when the team lineup come out, of going to a back three with wing backs, but I did say, the first time I got worried about Ange and the direction we were going under Ange was the Everton game last year when he switched his tactics to a back three and we were a complete mess. It didn't look like there was any real, practice done on that system. Nobody really knew what they were doing, whereas everyone the other night, and we've been playing a back four in pre-season, knew their job, knew their responsibility. And I mean, PSG, I know they were maybe a bit undercooked, but they struggled to break Spurs down and create any real opportunities in the game. So yeah, that was a big plus for Thomas Frank in my book. And on any other night, I think we probably would have seen that result out, and a lot of fans would have been really happy. But look, most of the fans that I've seen and spoke to are all very, very happy with how Wednesday night went. But disappointed about the result. But there was a lot of positives in the performance, and I think moving into a new season now, that's got to be the aim. If it was at the end of the season and you lose a big game, if that's the final, the Champions League final, everyone's obviously really, really disappointed. But the fact we're starting a new season now, I think it was important for us to understand what the coaching team was going to show us, and I think there's so much they look forward to under this manager, and I do expect us to change our formation for this game on Saturday. And I've no doubt after what I've seen on Wednesday night, each player will know their responsibility. The main point that we mentioned on Wednesday was the manager needs support in the transfer market, like you've mentioned, with Eze, with Savinho. But I still feel that with this manager, I still think he'll get a bit more out of what we have. Not that that's acceptable, not to sign any players, but I do see a lot of players going to improve under this manager.
Darren says here, any win will do. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Spurs win against Burnley on Saturday. Stephen says here, we played great on Wednesday. And I tell you what also impressed me as well, Gareth, is it doesn't matter how we played, what the performance was like, or even the result, even the Bayern Munich game. Thomas Frank is the first over to the Spurs fans, applauding the fans at the end of the game. I love that. There seems to be he really wants that connection with the fans as well, which I really like. Your score prediction for this one? Surely we've got to start with a win.
Yeah, well, if everyone's top is Burnley, they finished bottom. So statistically, we couldn't be having a better game to start. Being at home to the team that everyone favours to finish last in the league, they haven't done a lot of business, and they were very, very defensive last year, Burnley. But albeit this is a massive step up in quality. So I'm not sure how much they'll be able to hurt teams in this league. So I would be worried if I was a Burnley fan of, will it just be one season in the Premier League unless they do some serious business in the next few weeks. But my prediction is Spurs will sweep the cobwebs off from the other night, start with a 1 under Thomas Frank, and I'm going to go for a 3-0 Spurs 1.
Yeah, Tim also says 3-0 Spurs. So hopefully Spurs can start the season with 3 points, because we've got a very tough game in the second game the following week, Man City away. Let's talk about Man City's opening fixture for the new season. Wolves away. Man City have won their opening league game in 13 of the last 14 seasons, with the exception of a 1-0 defeat at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in 21-22. Of course, that was Nuno Espirito Santo's first Premier League game as Spurs boss. Man City, can they win the Premier League? They finished trophyless last season. Pep's not going to be happy with that. I feel like Man City are going to be back. I feel like City are going to win the league, Gareth. Is that a big call?
Well, you'd be a fool to write them off. I mean, this is a manager who only knows how to win. I mean, that will have hurt him last year that they had a trophyless season. But they did have significant injuries. And I do feel that Man City have gone wrong over the last few seasons is the players they've lost. I don't think the players they brought on have reached the heights that they hoped that they thought they would. So that'll be the only worry. But they have signed well. I mean, Reinders, I think, is going to be a really, really good player for them. Rodri, coming back. I know he's injured until September, but he looked in those opening games in the Club World Cup, Man City looked like the winners for me. But the one worry I would have for them is defensively. They seem to concede a lot of goals, and they're very vulnerable in transition. And there is a lot of teams in the Premier League that love that counter-attack, fast turnover of a football, and that's where Man City are vulnerable, especially if Rodri's not in the team. So I'm sure Man City will be looking to do more business before the end of the window. I'm not sure. I think for the first time in a long time, they're not going to go on as the favourites, maybe not even go on as the second favourites. They could be as low down as the third or fourth favourites. Which may help them because
it's interesting, Gareth. A lot of the pundits, a lot of the ex-players, they've been predicting like Man City to finish fourth or fifth, and I don't know. Pep is not going to want to have another season like last year, and I feel like he will be back.
Yeah, well, I think they'll have a lot of tweaks in their game. When Pep's teams runs into problems, he's not the stubborn type of character that some managers are, and they persist. He will look at ways of the navigate through it and make them harder to beat, and obviously won games. He'll want that trophy back, and he'll probably say that, you know, if Man City are in the title race with a few games to go, that this one will mean more than any other one because they'll want to win it back. And I think he's very good at motivating players. It'll be interesting to see how they line up, what his sort of first 11 is going to be. I think Cowlin needs to get back to somewhere the form he was a couple of seasons ago. I mean, he had a real poor second half of the season. I'm sure he'll be working on his game to try and, you know, have opponents work them out, and I'm sure Haaland will have something to say about that. We'll know more about Man City in a few weeks' time, but I don't think they'll have any issues in this game, Chris. I fancy Man City. They won quite comfortably.
Mika writes here, City will be weaker without Slovenia. Can you see that one happening?
Well, the fact his agent's supposed to be flying Andy London, I think Man City have signed a player that maybe isn't ready for Man City, but may be a better player for us where we are right now. I think Savinho has got a lot of time, but he needs to work on his output. He doesn't score enough goals. And hopefully Thomas Frank is the right man. And Thomas Frank is very good at working with wide players and turning them into goal-scoring machines. So Savinho will look at it as well. And from what I hear, Savinho is looking for the move because he wants to get himself into the World Cup team next year. So he probably knows that isn't possible at Man City because he may not be first choice. So, and I think Man City will use the funds to maybe go and buy Rodrigo, who's maybe more ready than Savinho was. So I think this could be one of those deals that works out for everyone. And that doesn't happen too often in football. Yeah.
Right, let's move on to Sunday's games. 3 games will take place. Chelsea against Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace's last victory at Stamford.
Made prediction.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Gareth. Yeah, sorry.
I'll go 2-0 Man City. Sorry.
Wolves, Man City. Of course, I forgot why we're here. just talking football. Yeah, of course. But the predictions: Wolves v Man City. You're going to go 2-0. Do you know what? Pereira has made Wolves a lot stronger than what they were. And I feel like it's going to be a tough game for City, but they'll scrape it. They will get the 3 points. I'm going to say 2-1. 2-1 City. Sunday's fixtures, Chelsea against Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace's last victory at Stamford Bridge in the Premier League came back in April 2017 under Sam Allardyce, which was 2-1. Since then, they've failed to win on any of their last 8 trips in league action, losing 7 of those matches and drawing 1. Of course, we know as Spurs fans how difficult it is to get a result at Stamford Bridge. Crystal Palace. What do you make of all the speculation? The likes of Mark Gay and of course Eberechi Eze apparently wants a Spurs move. Their European situation as well. Crystal Palace, the manager there, Glazner, has made them a very, very different outfit. He's really impressed me, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chris, I think his character, his tactical nous, his man management has been second to none. Very, very impressive. And this isn't just something that should have surprised people. I mean, he done the same at Frankfurt. He won the Europa League with Frankfurt. And Frankfurt, since he left, haven't really been the same team. I think, Palace could be a real surprise selection this season. I think they will be looking definitely at getting into that top 6, top 7. Now, of course, if they lose players, that's going to be more difficult. But I have to say, you look at what's happening at Newcastle with Isak and, Brentford with Vasa. Fair play to Gehi and Eze. There's been a lot of speculation around their future, but how professional have they been? This is a team that won the Community Shield on Sunday against a Liverpool team who everyone is thinking is going to be the team to stop. And both of those played a part in that result. So whatever Glasner's doing to keep everybody together, keeping the noise out as well, is really, really impressive. And I say big up to Gehi and Eze, because I think they're prepared. If they don't get their moves, they're more than happy to give their all for Palace. And I think that's something that, if we do get Eze, I'll be really, really happy with that. We're getting a player who's not going to down tools should another club come calling for him. And Mark Gehi as well, as happily says that he'll stay and see out his contract at Crystal Palace for another year if he doesn't get his move. So I think that's credit to Palace, credit to Glasner. And credit to the two players. And of course, either side have won in the FA Cup and the Community Shield. There's been this talk with the Conference League, Europa League, and that's gone against them as well. But again, I don't think it'll let them distract them from their season, because I do think they are a real shout. They won that European Conference League, especially if they can keep hold of some of their players. But even if they don't, I think Asner has shown that he will be able to make them competitive. And look, there's going to be a big shock this weekend, and I am telling you, I think the shock could be at Stamford Bridge.
So Chelsea are title contenders, of course. They beat PSG in the Club World Cup champions. Maresca has done I hate to say it, he's done a fantastic job there at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a team that's improving. I don't see them as title contenders. I think Maresca says last year at Christmas they weren't title contenders when they were sitting second, just a couple of points off top. And obviously that statement became true because they struggled in that second part of the season, but did put together a great run of results at the end. They claw themselves back into the Champions League. Again, at Chelsea, it just seems like another crazy summer. A lot of players coming in, a lot of players going out. And I do think it's very difficult to win leagues when you're so much uncertainty, so many players coming in and out. It's going to take them time to gel again. I think every team that wins the Premier League needs a really, really top goalkeeper. I don't think Chelsea have a top goalkeeper. And again, have they got an out-and-out number 9? I like João Pedro, I do. I think Liam Delap's another player that's improving, but have they got a player that can fire on 25 goals? There's been a lot of pressure on Cole Palmer over the last few seasons since he's been there, and he has form even dipped in the second part of the season. So I do think Chelsea are still at least a year away from being title contenders, but I do think they're going to have to, at some stage, draw the line on changing so many players every season, because it's a recipe for disaster, I think.
Yeah, that revolving door, remains at the moment at Chelsea. Gareth, I'm going to go 1-1. What are you going for?
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Palace 1. That's going to be my shock result of the weekend. 2-1 Palace.
What on Eze to get both?
Well, imagine if Eze did get the both and he whips the top off, and that's his last play to Chelsea. He doesn't need any more. He doesn't need any more love from Spurs fans, because they adore him anyway. But I mean, that would be even more. That would be a great signing off, because it does look, if going to be done. It's going to be done in the next week, possibly. So this could potentially be his last game for Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I would have hoped that Eze would be putting that Spurs shirt on the opening weekend of the season for Thomas Frank. Right, next up, Nottingham Forest take on Brentford. Of course, Brentford are a very different outfit now. Of course, Thomas Frank, various players have left the football club. Nottingham Forest are now in the Europa League. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult one to call because Forest have done a lot of business this week and they're still trying to get players in. So I think, and obviously they've lost Alanga, so I think Forest may well take a bit of time to get going. Of course, they've kept Gibbs White, which we all know about, and from a Spurs point of view, which was disappointing for us. But I think massive for Forest that they've kept him after losing Alanga. And it looks like they're going to keep Hudson-Odoi as well. And there looks to be some players coming on the door that'll help them in Europe because I think there's a big difference between Europa League and Conference League. There's a lot better teams in that, and I think that'll be the case for Forest. Can they navigate, playing good, half decent teams and then obviously better teams in the second half of the season with the squad that they have, and that'll be the challenge for Nuno. I think Forest were kind of found out towards the end of last season tactically. They relied a lot on set pieces. I think towards the end of the season, teams have caught on to what they were going to do, and they also ran out of steam just with the same players playing every week and a lot more games this year. So I would be surprised if Forest did get back into that position they run last year. I think it was 5th or 6th they finished. But I would see them more as a mid-table team this year. But we know the owner is very, very ambitious, so it'll be interesting to see how much money they throw at the transfer window in the last few weeks. Brentford, I think, are going to be a team that everybody looks at as potential relegation candidates just because they've lost Thomas Frank. They've lost Mbuemo. It looks nailed on at Visit Newcastle. And of course, Keith Andrews is coming into his first managerial job. And he's coming into this team that have lost a lot of experience. Norgard's also left, their captain. So I think Brentford are going to be in for a real tough battle. And I think for a club that are really well organised, I think even they will settle for 17th position this year.
Yeah, such an interesting stat. Under Thomas Frank, in the 4 seasons in the Premier League, they have never been in the relegation zone. But I feel like they could be in trouble, Gareth, if they don't sign a number of real quality players before the 1st September to back the manager. But before we give score predictions, Brentford have never lost their opening game in any of their 4 previous Premier League campaigns, winning 2, drawing 2, scoring exactly 2 goals in each match. Score prediction, I'm going to go for a Nottingham Forest win. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Forest win.
I'm going to go for a 1-0 Forest win, Chris.
Right. The last game of Sunday will be Manchester United against Arsenal. Of course, Manchester United have made a number of real quality signings since losing the Europa League final to Spurs. They're heavily backing Amorim here at Old Trafford. Arsenal, as we know, they have been bantered for the last couple of years, finishing second. Are Arsenal any closer to winning the Premier League, would you say?
What was that? Sorry, Chris?
Do you think Arsenal are any closer to winning the Premier League, or is it going to be second again for them?
I think Gyökeres is obviously a player that they've been crying out for, a striker that isn't really fussed about link-up play, just wants to be in the penalty box to score goals. I think that'll definitely help them if he can settle in the Premier League. It's a big opportunity for him. And Arsenal have gambled on him because his Championship, the Portuguese League, they hear is a big jump in the Premier League. I just wonder, have they missed their opportunity? Obviously they've brought Gyökeres in. He'll make a big difference. They've brought some more players in too, but I think the teams around them have strengthened. Liverpool have obviously strengthened a lot. And Man City have strengthened again. So I just wonder if Arsenal, like we see me Pochettino, did we miss our opportunity in those 2 seasons? We finished 3rd to Leicester and 2nd to Chelsea. I wonder if Arsenal are going to suffer the same fate. And I think if that is the case this year, Arteta could be under huge pressure to keep his job because the Arsenal fans are losing patience. They want that Premier League title or the Champions League. I think he needs to win one of those 2 to possibly be kept on. Because there has been a lot of money spent there. But no, I think they're going into this season as possibly, well, in my opinion, they're going on as 3rd favourites. I think everyone else may be 2nd favourites, but I still see 2 stronger outfits than them this year.
Tim says here, an easy United win, obviously. Steve Dyer says second again, ole ole. And Jono says 2-1 Arsenal. Now, this is just the second time in English league history Manchester United are hosting Arsenal in their first game of the season, previously beating the Gunners 4-1 in 89-90. Do you like? Would you like it, Gareth? If us as Spurs fans, if we had a really huge game for the first game of the season, and that's no disrespect to Burnley, by the way, or any of other opponents, but these are two huge clubs meeting each other for the opening game. Are you a fan of that?
Well, I think that the Premier League have started doing that recent seasons, haven't they? There's always been a big game to start the season. I think it was Chelsea, Man City last year, Chelsea, Liverpool the year before that, and of course it's Man United, Arsenal this time. You look, Man United fans I remember them beating Chelsea 4-0 in Frank Lampard's first game. So, United will, from a motivational point of view, I think United being at home, they'll be up for it. I think if you're the away team, it's a bit more difficult. We seen I remember that podcast we did when the fixtures come out, we had Man City first, Nuno's first game. We were like, I'm not sure about this, but it was a great way to start the season when we beat them 1-0. So, look, I think being at home is always an advantage in a game like this at the very start of the season. I think United have done some good business with Sesko and Buemo and Cunha. I'm finding this very difficult to call. I think it'll be very, very tight. My score prediction, Chris, for this game will be 1-1.
Oh, come on, Gareth. Give us a better scoreline than that. I think Man United are going to win 2-0. That's what people want to hear, isn't it? No, I feel like the signings for Manchester United, and I feel like the crowd will really be pleased with Amorim getting backed at Old Trafford by having some real quality players coming through the door, and I feel like they're going to have a very different season this season as well. I'm going to go 2-0 Man United. You going to stick with your 1-1?
Yeah, I'm 1-1. Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be.
I've tried, everyone. I tried. Right, the last one: Leeds v Everton. Newly promoted Leeds, of course, they've been here before in the Premier League. Will they learn their lesson from the last time? Can they stay up? And Everton have just signed Jack Grealish on a 1-year loan. I feel like that is going to be a really good deal for them.
Yeah, well, I think Grealish needs to go somewhere where he's going to feel loved, and he will at Everton because they're lacking flair players. Possibly a person to die. Don't really have a lot of flair there, so I think Everton fans behind him. And I think this is kind of when Dele Alli went to Everton, could he rebuild his career? And it didn't work for Dele Alli, so Jack Grealish will be hoping he's not the next Dele Alli, that he can rebuild himself. And Jack Grealish will have bigger aspirations than Everton. Let's not. I don't want to disrespect Everton, but he will. But if anybody can get a tune out of him, I think the likes of Harry Redknapp, who's retired, but David Moyes is probably that kind of manager that if he can get something out of him, if it doesn't happen there, I'm not sure where it will. Everton, I think David Moyes says he wants to get some more players on because they're short. And when it comes to Leeds, I mean, great to have Leeds back in the Premier League, a bit like Sunderland, massive club. That place is going to be rocking on Monday night. I think this will be a really, really good game, and I'm looking forward to that one actually.
Jack Grealish said once he spoke to David Moyes, that is exactly where he wanted to go. And Moyes has done a good job since his return to Goodison Park, which, of course, now they're moving to their new stadium this season.
Yeah, that'll be the difficult part for Everton, because I think Goodison Park, even when they've been in bad form, teams always seen it as a difficult place to go. Tight pitch atmosphere. You're right on top of the players. The fans are right on top of the players, and they're not afraid to voice their opinion too. The transition to this new stadium is going to be a challenge for Everton. How are they going to set up? Because I think teams will like going there. It's going to be a bit more open. The pitch will be bigger, and teams might enjoy going there. I think West Ham struggled with that initially, moving from Upton Park to the Olympic Stadium, and I hope for Everton's point of view they don't have that kind of struggle that they had, because if they do, it could be they could be dragged into a relegation battle, which they've been no stranger to in recent seasons.
Right, Gareth. So Leeds United have won only one of their last 11 Premier League meetings with Everton, drawing 4 and losing 6, and are winless in each of their most recent 5, drawing 2 and losing 3. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Everton win. Jack Grealish to get off to a flying start and put one in the top corner in the last 10 minutes to get the winning goal.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go against you, Chris. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Leeds one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Gareth, thank you so much for joining. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Before you do go, so what are your predictions for the bottom three in May? Who is going to win the Premier League and who will finish? Well, it's going to be the top five now, isn't it? In Champions League spots.
Yeah. I'll go Burnley, Brentford, and I'm going to go Wolves. Leeds will just stay up by the skin of their teeth, I'm going to say. I'm going to say Wolves. I think Cunha's going to be a huge loss for them. And Al Nuri's a big loss. I think they've lost their two best players. So I'm going to go Burnley 20th. I'll go Brentford 19th and Wolves 18th. And then Premier League winner, I think Liverpool, because they're going to get Isak. I think that's going to make a huge difference. I just think they're going to score so many goals it'll make it really difficult for everyone else. I'll go Man City second, Arsenal third, Man United fourth, and I'm going to go, based on what I've seen and what I think we're going to do, I'm going to put Spurs on fifth. And the reason I put United on fourth, I think no European football, all those big other teams in the Champions League, they'll benefit out of that. And I think they will find their way back into the Champions League. Yeah.
Gareth, thank you so much for joining us. Remind everyone where they can find you and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Gareth Hotspurs. Loads of Spurs stuff on there. You can usually find me on this channel as well. Love being part of the biggest Spurs podcast going. This podcast is doing really, really well as well. So big up to Chris for keeping all the Spurs fans updated with everything that's happening connected to the club. And I'm actually back on here tomorrow after the Burnley game, after we get our first 3 points of the season. So I'll see you then.
Gareth, look forward to it. Speak to you tomorrow. Thank you so much, and enjoy your weekend, everyone. And let us know all of your score predictions and who you think is going to win the Premier League campaign 25-26. We will see you on the next one. Until then, come on, you Spurs.